Thor Ragnarok is incredible. I think a lot of you already know that. And of course, as I watched this movie, I was thinking to myself, this is a great time to talk about my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. I actually tweeted out about it a couple of days ago, and I got a lot of responses. Lots of people out there were talking about it. I've got Guts saying Avengers. I said, what is the best Marvel movie? And Guts, Corey A. Walsh says Avengers, done. I've got David Poole saying Winter Soldier has the best balance of action, character development, humor, and drama, easily the most award-worthy. We've got Iron Man, Cap, first Avengers, so two of them from Brooks, Vancouver Brooks. And Christian DeVos says Captain America Winter Soldier. Got a lot of votes for Captain America Winter Soldier. Lots of non-MCU titles came up in what was the best Marvel movie. Spider-Man 2 was a big one. A lot of people said Logan, and also a lot of people said Blade, which was interesting. Marvel's The Avengers from Jay Bear. It's Jason Murphy saying Marvel's The Avengers is highest grossing movie at $623 million. That's a good, some good analysis right there. Emily B says, personally, Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think it's up to whoever answers the question, which is absolutely correct. And then I thought, okay, well, I've never really done this on the show. I've certainly talked about my love for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I've had a great time with a lot of these movies. Why don't I take you down my pecking order, my list of things that I like? And we're going to start with number 18, which is The Incredible Hulk. Not the rundown. We're done with that. We're going to talk about The Incredible Hulk. Let's see if I can get this up on the screen here for you. This was the Edward Norton movie. And it was super fun. It had some really nice pacing, a lot of great action. I think it was Louis Leterrier who directed this thing, and it had a kind of a B-movie, sort of monster movie kind of charm to it. And it was fun. Tim Roth was the bad guy. Super good pacing. Super. It was super enjoyable. I would give this movie even today about an 8. It was still solid, and it created a need for more Hulk action, which I think is still kind of yet to be satisfied. I think we really need a brand new standalone Hulk experience. That would be great. And it's too bad Edward Norton must have pissed some people off because he never got to play Bruce Banner again. My second choice at number 17 is Thor: The Dark World. I know a lot of people, like Scott Jones, have issues with this movie because it is a bit nonsensical. I will give it that. But it mixed science fiction with Norse mythology, and it had these really cool spaceships. The enemy was a little bit sort of weird and amorphous. You don't really get a real sense of menace or identity about who the main bad guy is. But it was still really beautiful. It was a spectacle, and I had a really, really fun time with it. Natalie Portman has yet to be seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think, since this movie. But, she had some fun with it. I thought Loki was solid in this thing, and Chris Hemsworth is always good as Thor. But I think the thing that really knocked me out, and I actually liked all of Thor's friends in this movie too. They were all really solid, like Lady Sif, and it was a good time. But the thing that knocked me out was all of these incredible sci-fi pieces coming in. It really was a cosmic experience. So that's number 17. I would also give this movie about an 8, as it's sort of gone through the test of time there. Number 16, I'm going to give it to Iron Man 2. And this one holds a special place in my heart because of Whiplash. I always thought that Mickey Rourke was hamming it up and having kind of a cheesy good time with this character. Sam Rockwell's in there as another arms guy that's trying to compete with Tony Stark, and he was solid. Scarlett Johansson made her, I think, first appearance as Black Widow, and she kicks serious ass. It was fun. The end of the film was a little abrupt and a little anticlimactic after all of this work to kind of embellish this universe and build us, something really cool and solid. But, Robert Downey Jr., perfect casting. And Mickey Rourke as Whiplash is super fun. I searched forever to find a Mickey Rourke Whiplash Hot Toys figure. They were so expensive after they stopped making them. But I found one, a secondhand one in Tokyo when I was out there one year, and it's one of my favorite figures. So go figure. I really liked Iron Man 2. I would give that also an 8. I've got it, which is amazing. I'm going to talk about 18 movies as quickly as I can here, and they start really at around an 8 and they go up to a 10, which is insanity. You know, what other studio has made that many movies that quickly that are at that kind of quality bar for that many people? And I understand a lot of people hate the MCU and they're done with it. They'd rather see stuff from DC or whatever. I get it. Number 15 for me is Thor. And I'm going to, I think the big reason why I like Thor so much is because of Chris Hemsworth just, embodying this character in such a wonderful way. It was, again, expert casting, a terrific person to kind of invest all of that, the millions of dollars in, and to get sort of fans hyped up about it. I think this was a weird one. This was a choice by Marvel to say Thor can exist in the movie universe, and this was a strange thing. Who knew that this was going to work? We got all kinds of really incredible supporting actors in here. This was the first time that we get to see Loki, and it was funny and charming and fun, and some pretty cool action beats in this thing as well. Solid flick. So that was number 15. Number 14, I'm going to give it to Marvel's Iron Man 3, and I know a lot of people are choked about this flick because of the sort of subterfuge that happened around the Mandarin, but I thought that was one of the most enjoyable parts of the movie for me. Shane Black wrote this and directed this. I think Shane Black wrote this and directed this. I've got that info right down here. I'm not sure. Yeah, but it was great. Really crisp writing. A lot to say about the precariousness of being visible and out there as a superhero in the public eye. There was some real sort of stakes and the real menace involved in. We see Tony Stark's home getting destroyed here. It was amazing. It was a little cheesy when we got to the kid part, but I think the kid just served as a plot point to kind of humanize Tony Stark and to bring this kind of invincible hero back down to earth a little bit, and I thought that was pretty solid. It was just a really, really well-tuned movie. It got a bit noisy with all of the the robot battles at the end. There was just too much chaos, but it was slick, it was cool, and I think it helped to define Tony Stark's character better than the previous two Iron Man movies were able to do. And gave him a little bit more nuance. And they also dipped into the Extremis storyline, which is one of my favorite comic plots ever. And I was really happy to see all that stuff. And plus, as a toy collector, the amount of amazing Iron Men that were on display on screen here was ridiculous. So that was Iron Man 3 was number 14. Number 13, and this may piss some of you off because you may like it more than me, was Guardians of the Galaxy, the very first one, which I thought was very entertaining. I still gave it an 8.5, and I would stand by that. And I thought all of the actors and the performers and the characters were wonderful. But I also felt like it was not really. Like Ronan the Accuser was the bad guy, and I thought that he was kind of weak. He was kind of afterthought-ish, especially after we see him kind of kneeling and kowtowing to Thanos in the movie. I liked Nebula. I loved the relationship with her and Gamora as an introduction. What I like the most about this movie is the set pieces and the character and the universe galaxy kind of building that James Gunn and his team did. I think everybody came to the table with something very fresh and something very fun and addictive, and clearly the audiences around the world lapped it up, and sequels came and more are coming. But I felt like there was just something kind of missing from this origin tale that some of the other Marvel movies hit a little bit stronger. Still, terrific fun, very entertaining movie. That was number 13 for me. Number 12 is Ant-Man, and this was a movie that took a little bit of time for me to kind of grow to love. See what I did there? And it actually, I've said this before, but it was nuts, man. Like, I saw this in the theater, and it was, again, it's like when Marvel plays with these ingredients of humor and levity and action, and sometimes it can pull you out because it just feels like it's the formula is sort of on display there before the art is, And so when I saw it, I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, the jokes weren't amazing, and I wasn't laughing about everything, and because there was such a dip towards jokiness, I didn't really feel like there was a real threat or there was a real menace. And so I kind of, I liked it, but it didn't blow me away. But then I saw it again, of all places, on an airplane, little tiny screen, and I was obviously captured in that environment. I couldn't go anywhere else, so I was locked in on a tiny screen. I watched Ant-Man, and I was howling, and I just loved the ingenious sort of elements in there. And Michael Pena is incredible in this movie. Like a hero's sidekick with that much charm. He outcharms Paul Rudd, which seems like a superpower unto itself. And of course, Paul Rudd is great in this. And Evangeline Lilly, we got a little taste of what she's going to be in the Wasp, in the Ant-Man and Wasp movie. Lots of fun ingredients, but it's also small, and I think that's kind of cool. It sort of stands in contrast to some of these huge cosmic and massive explosion type, Marvel flicks that we've seen before and since. And I think that they've earned their rightful place in the MCU, and it's a solid flick. And so I give that, that's number 12, and I would give that about an 8.5. Number 11, also at about an 8.5, is Doctor Strange. And this is a movie that gets trippy, and it has to get trippy. And it kind of knocks you out how trippy it becomes. It's like, oh my God, I can't even believe what I'm seeing here. But that's what Doctor Strange is. And every comic that I've ever picked up over the years, it's kind of lost me, because it just gets into this metaphysical and all this magic talk and these interdimensional beings and these crazy creatures and visually. And I saw this in 3D with Jose, and it's like we got totally stoned and saw this thing, because we came out and it was like, what happened? My brain has melted. And that's amazing. But it also, in all of this visual splendor, it kind of creates a remove a little bit. That's why I don't rate this movie higher. Still, another one of these Marvel flicks that just seems impossible, and they made it possible, and they made it believable, and they cast the perfect guy in Benedict Cumberbatch. I liked his relationship with Rachel McAdams. I like Benedict Wong as Wong, and Mads Mikkelsen. I love this guy every time I see him in a movie. He is so good, this guy. What an incredible actor he is. And Chiwetel Ejiofor, and also Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One. I thought she was a great foil, a great, sort of driven presence in there, and I thought that was really solid. But really, it is one of the biggest mind trips that movies have ever created. But that's sitting at number 11. Number 10 for me is Captain America: The First Avenger, and this, I think, is the movie that, more than every other Marvel movie, I think this is the one, even though it starts with Iron Man in 2008, and then this one came out, I think, right afterwards? No, okay, 2011. Okay, so it took a few years before this one came out. And it's not perfect. There's some issues with Hugo Weaving's character. What's his name? I'm losing. Red Skull. It just looked a little fake in there, but boy, did they pick the perfect guy again with Chris Evans, and that visual transformation of him being this virtuous, guy that just wants to support the troops and fight for his country and stop at nothing, and then transform him into the ultimate soldier. Incredible. And I love the 40s aesthetic. I love that they got Joe Johnston, the guy that directed The Rocketeer, to direct this movie. They nailed all of that. The aesthetics are incredible. And I know that kind of turns a lot of people off because it isn't topical when you go back in time like this. It's not sort of pertinent like maybe some of the other Marvel movies have been able to do. Going for this Nazi kind of stuff was a bit... It needed to happen for this character, but it was a bit weird, right, to throw that in there. But I love the suit. I love the abilities of Cap as he's shown in the film. I loved all of his athleticism. I loved his relationship with Peggy Carter, and it has a glow, man. This movie just really, like, Iron Man is the cool and the sort of brains, I feel like, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but Cap is all heart, and it's all just passion, and they really started off strong with Captain America: The First Avenger. That's why it's coming in at number 10 for me. Number 9 is What do I got here? Number 9 is Black Panther, and this is fairly recent, so I haven't had time to kind of see this multiple times and kind of really assess everything. This is a fluid list because obviously the more of these movies keep coming out, but Black Panther was absolutely astounding in its uniqueness. It's obviously heroes and people and a culture that we don't traditionally see associated with these big huge studio movies like this. We haven't really seen heroes that are superheroes that are based out of Africa. We haven't seen a lot of that kind of technology associated with Africa. We haven't seen, the literal colors that come from the environments and the costumes. And it was just really a beautiful movie. It was another one of these sumptuous visual sort of treats. But I think more than that, it was like these incredible performances, man. Chadwick Boseman is perfect as this humble, compassionate leader, and Letitia, I forgot her last name here. Letitia, oh God, where is it? As Shuri, Letitia Wright as Shuri was insane, so much fun to watch. Andy Serkis is great in this movie. Got a little silly with Martin Freeman there and his ability to survive everything, I think, a little bit. But I love Lupita Nyong'o and Danae Gurira. I hope I'm saying these names right. But I will say that Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan, this is arguably the strongest bad guy that the whole MCU has had. And I think that Black Panther would not be the movie that it is without this man as sort of the villain, but you can understand his motivations so that he's much, much deeper and much bigger and much better than most of the other sort of, mustache twirling bad guys that we see in a lot of these superhero movies. Incredible work, and like everybody came to like show what they could do. From Ryan Coogler on down, this is a sensational movie. That's why it's number 9 for me. And number 8 is something that I just reviewed, and I'm not going to get right back into that because you guys just watched my review. Or if you haven't, if you're watching this as an archive, watch my review of Thor Ragnarok. But that's number 8 for me. Again, I just have seen this. I've seen this a couple times now because I watched this in home video. And it's, I think, a bit of a divisive movie because it leans too heavily into the comedy kind of aspects of Thor. But if you look at Chris Hemsworth's work, that's hard to say, in Avengers and the Thor movies and the other cameos that he's made in the other Marvels, the MCU movies, there always is this comedic kind of edge. He's always got this twinkle. I am so impressed with this guy as an actor. He's got the physicality and he can do all of the stunt work and the fighting, and there's tremendous sort of stuff on display that showcases that in every one of the Thor movies, and this one in particular in his battle against Thor, or in his battle against the Hulk. But he's really a commanding presence, just in his way to communicate and his physical comedy. It's incredible stuff, and I love this movie, and it really stands up to repeat viewings. Number 8 is Thor Ragnarok. Number 7 is maybe something you may disagree with as well. This is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where we get introduced to a new Groot. James Gunn has gone on record in saying that the Groot that we met in Guardians 1 died, and this is a seed that sprouted a baby Groot. And but what I loved about this movie, and it takes some weird tangential kind of misdirection kinds of things in here as well, where we go off on a different direction for a little while. We don't really understand why. But I loved the humanity that sort of comes in from around the edges on all of these characters. I felt bad for Rocket, I really cared for this character. I was concerned about what was going to happen to Baby Groot. Michael Rooker also broke my heart in this movie, and I thought Kurt Russell was incredible. It was just awesome to see him kind of just like it was with Jeff Goldblum in Thor Ragnarok. It was amazing to see Kurt Russell, who has given us so much, to kind of genre entertainment and genre cinema, to be kind of celebrated in this movie with a really cool role. And all the effects and everything else also looked like they got juiced because the first Guardians made a lot of money, and James Gunn had some more stuff to kind of play with. Gorgeous movie. Great performances. We get to know these characters a little deeper. The laughs were all there, and it's also loaded with really cool action sequences and lots of amazing superheroics. I love this movie, and I can't wait to see where James Gunn takes. I have so much respect and admiration for what James Gunn has done here. Because again, this is what's amazing to me is that these Marvel movies, Doctor Strange and Thor and Guardians of the Galaxy, like they're so esoteric and they're so out of nowhere, and yet they become these huge pop culture icons. Number 6 for me is going to be Iron Man, the original one from 2008. This is, I would say that this is as perfect casting with Robert Downey Jr. This kind of a threat to a movie studio, kind of it's something that maybe not everybody would bet on because of his, his previous drug use and his criminal history. But he's perfect as Tony Stark. It's as perfect as Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, and that you cannot conceive or think of anybody else to step in this role. It was a great origin story. You really had concern for the guy. Like, he really looked like he was at death's door, and how was he going to get out of this? And his wits take him out of it. His relationships with all the supporting actors were terrific as well. Gwyneth Paltrow and Jon Favreau is Happy. I would say that the Jeff Bridges element was the only thing that was maybe a little weaker in there, and it was only because at the end you're just it looks like we're just looking at two action figures kind of bashing off of each other, and we lost a little bit of the the humility and the humanity that they struggled so hard to inject into these suits, into the science behind everything, and at the end it just becomes like explosions and people fighting and stuff, and it was a little drop down at the end, but still an amazing movie. And I think it's an important one to revisit because of how much it led into. It was basically the beginnings of this new way of looking at how universes can be represented on screen. The juggernaut studio that is Marvel. Number 5 for me is also a very recent movie. This is Spider-Man: Homecoming. This is just from last year. Perfect casting again. Tom Holland was a terrific find, and clearly respects the mantle that he's been given. There are a lot of challenges. The fact that they had to co-produce with Sony, and the fact that Sony had to basically wipe the table of all the Spider-Man iterations that they had done before. All of that could not have been easy. But they did a great job, and again, it's one of these grounded, smaller type of experiences that perfectly suits the character and the storylines. The fact that they made this kind of a John Hughesian version of Spider-Man was brilliant. Great sort of, dapples of comedy throughout it. And again, a very strong choice in the villain as Michael Keaton as the Vulture, who is such an incredible performer, and I'm so glad that he is having a resurgence and is being asked to be in lots of cool pictures these days too. He's great in this. The Robert Downey Jr. sort of cameo bits in there were great. Love that Michael Mando is a part of the MCU as well now as the Scorpion. Spoiler alert. And it was just fun, man. It was just really, really well handled against a lot of the skepticism that I think most of us could rightly have, because here was kind of a retelling of the Spider-Man myth on screen again, and the Donald Glover a bit in the movie was a very nice touch as well. Number 4 for me is the Avengers: Age of Ultron, and this is a crowded movie. It's, again, another divisive movie. The consequences of the picture we're still kind of feeling the ramifications of as the movies kind of went on. But it was also the introduction of the Vision. We got a sense of who Scarlet Witch is, and it expanded the universe. And what happened here is that after the Avengers had kind of proven that a superhero team was possible on screen, the Avengers: Age of Ultron kind of had to scale up. And Joss Whedon had all of this pressure to kind of build up, and suddenly the MCU was exploding in all kinds of incredible territory. And it is a little too much, and you can feel the movie kind of busting at the seams and the weight of it kind of crushing down on everybody. But a lot of great seeds are sown in this. Like we get the idea that there might be a relationship between Natasha and Bruce, and that Hawkeye wants to retire, and I thought the James Spader performance was incredible as Ultron. It was very creepy, and the idea that the technology that Iron Man is so much a believer in may be their undoing, and sort of creating the rift between he and Captain America, which sort of plays into the Civil War. The Hulkbuster sequence, I mean, it was astounding to watch. There was a lot of stuff in this movie that you're just like, again, you cannot believe your eyes, you know? And seeing the Vision just sort of vaporize in between buildings and battling all of these robots, insane. I mean, there are comic panels springing to life in front of your eyes that you're like, how did they do this? And they did. Another incredible outing for the Avengers, and I can't wait to see what they do to top themselves with Infinity War. Number 3 is Captain America Civil War. And for those keeping score and sort of following along here, there are 3 Captain America movies in my top 10. And this was terrific. We get a deeper sense of who Bucky Barnes is. Bucky Barnes is quickly becoming, as these movies progress, one of the most important people in the and characters within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it was a very intense kind of riff on the idea that these heroes are going to have massive disagreements and what's that going to mean. It also had some really profound things to say about these vigilantes and their superheroics and what they can mean in the world in a kind of a realistic kind of way. I like that they brought back William Hurt to be the general again. I thought that was pretty cool. And of course, the epic battle at the airport was astounding, and the introduction of Spider-Man in this movie, the introduction of Ant-Man's new power to grow and be Giant Man. I don't know if you saw this movie in the theater, but it was like breathless when I saw it in the theater, and people were gasping and laughing, and a lot of holy shits were being thrown around as they were watching all of this stuff. And of course, we got introduced to Black Panther as well in this flick. So the Russo brothers had come back after their terrific success with The Winter Soldier, and they showed that they could escalate, and they could even grow it even bigger. A little bit weak on the bad guy department. Zemo is kind of just in there to kind of tease what may happen later on. But some heaviness, some big stakes, and maybe not as epic a confrontation as we saw with the Civil War storyline in the comics, but we're edging towards that, and it's another remarkable achievement. Number 2 is Captain America Civil War, which was the Russo brothers at the helm for the first time. This is the more kind of 70s thriller kind of vibe on Cap, and sort of he's kind of a tool for the government, for S.H.I.E.L.D. He's like this weapon that they can bring out, and he is just unfaltering in his belief that he's working for the right people, and he quickly has a lot of his beliefs shattered, and he doesn't know who to trust, and people that were his teammates suddenly become his enemies. I thought Frank Grillo was fantastic in this movie as well, by the way. It was crazy to see Robert Redford in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but he is really fun to watch in this movie. I love Nick Fury's sequence in this thing. But I think the standout for me, other than Chris Evans, again, proving that he's the heart of this franchise, is the Winter Soldier himself is just so scary. He's just truly menacing. And every time he's picking up a gun and blasting at our heroes, you feel like the end is nigh. And it really looks like that in several different times throughout the flick. It's one of those like intense experiences. Like you really go through stuff. I give this movie a 10. I actually give Civil War a 10, this a 10, and The Avengers a 10, which is my number 1 pick, which I'm going to get into here in a second. But this was amazing. Fantastic elevator sequence. Also the introduction of Falcon, who is Anthony Mackie, who is integral to the enjoyment of the whole MCU. Really, really fun stuff. And I've already spoiled it, but my number 1 is the original Avengers movie. When did the Avengers first come out? 2012. Yeah, this was. There's a bit of a personal thing here with this as well because I got to see this with my friend Billy Campbell, who I got to know through interviewing him on EP, and he of course played the Rocketeer for Disney ages ago, and he's a terrific guy, and he's constantly working, and he's like, I just spoke with Sam, he's a vagabond, so he's in different places. He's working on Cardinal right now on CTV, but he came with Scott Jones and I to the screening of the Avengers, and I was like, I'm a fan of Billy's from the Rocketeer, but I'm also watching these movies, or all these heroes come together for the very first time. I ain't never seen nothing like this, like this scale with this effects budget and all these incredible characters. And the Hulk was just incredible in this movie. The idea that Tony Stark has got these seminal lines like "I'm bringing the party to you" or "Hulk smash," and it was just so much fun. I know that it's easy to pick this thing apart, and even when I saw it that first time, I could remember like the beginning is a bit of a drag as we're in this SHIELD HQ, and it's all sort of military, and it just felt like, okay, what's this tone going to be? And I remember feeling like, oh my God, I hope the Rocketeer likes this movie. And but we ended up loving the flick, and it was crazy because we saw it on the biggest screen in this theater in Vancouver, but it was a critic screening in the morning at 10 o'clock in the morning, and there was maybe 20 people there, so it wasn't quite the uproarious, noisy, whole theater filled with people kind of experience that you want for an event like this. But still, this movie got to me. The memories of it are huge, and Joss Whedon really pulled it off, man. Like, he made an impossible thing possible, and yeah, I freaking love this movie, and I forever will. The Avengers is my #1 pick. Now, you've watched all this. I haven't been able to also follow along with you guys on the chat with this because I've been doing a tremendous amount of talking today. But I definitely want to. Oh my God, look at all these notes here. Wow. Thank you all for coming, by the way, and being a part of this and being on the chat today. It's incredible. I hope you've enjoyed the show. But I didn't really get a chance to follow along, and we are running late, so I can't really get into getting all of your picks and stuff right now. But what I want you to do is, under the archive, I want you to put your 18 together, put your list together. I want to read that, and I want to see your reasons why you've got the choices that you have.